And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single-family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Andy Webb with Lifestyles Unlimited, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. And if you've caught any of the recent shows, you know we are cruising around in the RV bunker. Well, we're still on the road. We're about three and a half weeks out now, away from our home space in the RV bunker. In fact, cruising around the great state of Florida, as it were. And last week we were up north, kind of central in the state, at a beautiful state park. Where are we now? Well, we find ourselves now in Koreshan State Park. So we kind of headed back to the Gulf Coast. This is on the Gulf Coast of Florida, just south of Fort Myers. In fact, they just dodged the hurricane here, Hurricane Ian. Park was closed for a little bit, fortunately opened up, and I'm glad it did. Beautiful here, just beautiful, right on the banks of the Estero River. Yes, there are alligators there. Yes, I will go paddleboarding regardless, so hopefully you hear me this time next week as well. But beautiful location, more Spanish moss. That seems to be the theme of our trip. Everywhere we've been in Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, the panhandle of Florida, now the Gulf Coast, we've got that moss just kind of hanging around. Now, how did we get here? Well, we started in East Texas, took I-20 over to Wait, that's not what you mean. How did we get here? How did we get to this point where we can travel like this, where my wife and I can just pick up, gather up our 6-year-old son, and go out for, traveling for a month or so. Travel wherever we want to go. Enjoy our time with that young son. I saw a post recently it was on Facebook, and Lifestyles Unlimited. If you're interested, you can follow us there. But they had a post. It said, "Spend more time making memories." This was just a couple of days ago. I thought it was very apropos because that's exactly what we're doing right now. Taking him out paddleboarding with those alligators. I'll be careful. Seeing some dolphins, the manatees. I mean, beautiful memories. Hiking, biking, all kinds of fun. Lots of time outdoors. Spending more time, I should say, making memories than sitting at a desk, sitting in that cubicle. Now, how did we get here? Well, we achieved our financial freedom a number of years ago. We became real estate retired. And I want to tell you a little bit more concretely how we did that. I want to go down that path with you. A case study, in essence. But keep in mind as I talk, this is just one example, one case study per se. And as I go through this, by the way, I will work in a few listener questions that I've gotten over the past few weeks that do fit into this story as well. Questions that may help you, things you may have on your mind. But I want you to keep in mind, this is just one case. There are thousands of Lifestyles Unlimited members that have achieved their financial freedom as well by doing the same thing, by investing in residential real estate to create passive income, to create cash flow. I did a show just a few weeks ago, in fact, just south of New Orleans at the time, with Jeff. And he talked about buying single family houses. He talked about buying his own multifamily. He talked about being a passive investor in apartments. And he talked about now being a lead. He's done it all. So that's another case study. So there are lots of people to listen to. And we try to bring a lot of people on so you can hear different stories, because everybody's story is unique. Everybody's story is a little bit different. Our physical destination, right? Literally physical destination may be unique to each one of us, and our financial needs may be different from one another. But ultimately, we're going to find that destination, which is financial freedom and becoming real estate retired. We talked last week a little bit about why this is a great alternative to the common path, the conventional wisdom path that most people follow. And I think the more you hear stories like mine, like Jeff's, like other members, the more you'll realize that you can do that as well. You can do it too. If you do want to catch more case studies, more evidence, more stories from other people, you can go to LU, that stands for Lifestyles Unlimited, lucasestudy.com. prerequisite.com and register for our case studies. If you're in one of our markets where we do that, you can certainly go in person. Most people like to just do it from the comfort of their home. Since I'm out in the RV bunker, I attend these virtually as well. And I hear people's stories like Jeff's that inspire me and keep me going. So let's get on, and I'll tell you a little bit about how my wife and I got started and some of the things we did over the years. And I hope this inspires you to take action as well. And like you're doing right now, before becoming a member, before even understanding what Lifestyles Unlimited was, we listened to this very radio show for, I don't know, it was a good year. So the radio show, listening, digesting, finally we bucked up and we attended the free workshop. The message resonated with us. Let's do it. And again, you can go to our website, lifestylesunlimited.com. There's a button, free workshop or register, something like that. It's an hour and a half. It's done online, so you can do it from anywhere, different times of day available to work with your schedule. So check that out. See if Lifestyles Unlimited seems like the education and mentoring group that you would like to become involved with to get started investing in real estate. And again, we talked last week about houses and apartments, why we find that as the ideal alternative investment to get us to the finish line. In my case, late 40s. I did not wait until 67. Did it far, far earlier, but it all started a decade or so ago. Do I wish it had started a decade before that or even a decade before that? You know I do. Yeah, you know I do. If you're listening and you're in your 20s, in fact, I got an email recently from somebody just out of college. And am I too young? No. Do I need to have some sort of experience in real estate? No. In fact, I want to get to one more of her questions here in just a moment, but back to our story, what we were doing, we went, heard the message, it resonated. We became members of the Financial Freedom Program. And that's the membership that everybody starts with. And we want you to start there to, again, get a little more information. Actually, let me rephrase that. It is like drinking out of a fire hose. It is a lot of information. We went to the 2-day. That's the Financial Freedom Seminar. Day 1 is all about investing in single-family houses, which is what we went on to do for a good decade or so. Still doing it, actually. And then day 2 is all about investing in apartments, whether as a lead or syndicator or as a passive or maybe as an IRO, right? We joined that program, went to the 2-day, and we realized, we would really welcome some extra help. We were dinks back then. That 6-year-old I mentioned, not in the picture, just a dog and a cat. So we were dinks, double income, no kids, full-time jobs, 40 hours, if not more, per week. So we decided to become members of the preferred investor group. We get a little more hand-holding there, help from the mentors, etc. And that's what we did. We had an early meeting with a mentor, and we had some homework. We had to come prepared. We brought an overview of our assets and our liabilities. This was my first introduction to really creating a personal financial statement, our income and expenses. How much in expenses did we have at the time that we needed to cover with passive income? How much income did we need to replace? Is it my income? Is it her income? Is it both our incomes? What's our job satisfaction like? As it were, I liked mine. My wife hated hers. And that's where our goals originated. We need to get her, when we sat with the mentor, this was Terry at the time, we got to get her out of her job. She hates it. It's killing her. As soon as possible. Terry said, look, houses are going to cash flow pretty much immediately. You may have a month or two of rehab depending on the scope of work. They're going to cash flow very quickly. Start down this path. And we did. And that's what we're going to talk about throughout the bulk of the show, because that's where a lot of you will start as well. And some of you may be on that path and be scratching your head. How do I get more houses? How do I build my portfolio? So let's talk about that. Now, I do want to tell you, at the 2-day, Del Walmsley was actually in the Dallas area, and he presented, and my wife and I asked him the question at the end of the 2-day. We said, look, we're in the process of looking for our own house. We've got this much cash in reserves. What do you think? Should we find our own house first, or should we do the rental houses? And Del was very, very, very frank. He said, forget about your house. Get invested. Create that cash flow. Get that equity. And if any of you have been to the 2-day seminar, the presenter will say, hey, go to the back of the book and write in the back of the book. I will not do what Del or David or whoever the presenter is tells me to do. We didn't do what Del told us to do. We said, we got to get our house first. We put a hurdle in our own way. Let's find our own house first. We were determined to do it. We did do it, but it took us a number of months. Depleted some of our reserves. Held us back. This takes me actually to one of the listener questions. I mentioned a few that she had given me, and one of her questions was, do I need to buy my own house first? And I heard it from Dell. I should have listened. We could have done a lot more with the capital we had back then. We would have started earlier. We would have had more acquisitions under our belt in a shorter time period. But no, you absolutely do not. In fact, my good friend David, he moved to Texas from New York and started buying investment property. And he did that over a decade, a dozen years, I'm not sure exactly, before he bought his personal residence. Had a lot of houses, a lot of passive investments in multifamily, owned his own multifamily. Did that extra bit of capital that he had in his pocket because he did not go down that route help him? It may have. Do you have to have your house, your own personal residence? No, you don't. So if you're struggling to figure out that balance between capital and getting started, know that you don't have to do that. Know that you don't have to do that. Now, we did that. And we got back on track and we started to work with the mentors and the realty team. And we said, we're buying houses. And even then, it took us a little bit of time. Buying that first one was the hardest because we had all kinds of mental roadblocks that we had to keep breaking down and something new would crop up. And, Jeff talked about this a couple of weeks on his show as well. Fear, just dumb fear. Worst case scenarios, what's going to go wrong, what's going to explode on me, fire, all these bad things that could happen, none of which happened. And when we finally bought that first house, it went great. What did that first one look like? Let's talk about that. Well, physically, what did it look like? This was a ranch-style house. This is a little bit north of us, about 12 miles away. 1 story, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage, maybe, 1900, a little more, 1950 square feet, 1980s build. This is essentially the bread and butter product that we typically talk about at Lifestyles Unlimited. Now, I'm not going to get too much into numbers because this was over a decade ago and that things have shifted a lot. We know that inflation has changed renovations. Now, the rehab cost at the time was around $30K. What did that include? That was about 30 piers to lift the foundation. Did that scare us? Yes, it did. Foundation work, what is that? Oh my gosh. But we did it. 30 piers, lifted the foundation, made that thing relatively flat. And after that, it was mostly cosmetic. Now, where did we get it? This was an off-market wholesale deal. And we sourced this through the Lifestyles Realty team. Now, you may be asking, wait a minute, wholesale deal, what is that? That's somebody that gets these things under contract and sells the contract to an investor. Couldn't I just connect directly with wholesalers? Yeah, you can. I've got a lot of wholesaler connections, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, a lot of analysis. Do you have the time? I know at the time, I did not. Double income, no kids, working full time. And I'd ask above and beyond, are you confident that you can separate the good wholesalers, because there are good wholesalers, from the bad? Because there are bad. Bad numbers, bad ethics. So you need to be able to differentiate. And I know I can trust the realty team. So that's where the first one came from. Very much the hardest. But here's the amazing thing. As soon as we bought that, not a month later, we were under contract on our second. It became much easier. Same realtor. Same wholesaler, in fact. Contracted a month later, and the process was underway. What did that one look like? Guess what? Pretty much the same. Ranch, 1 story, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage, about 1,700 square feet with an addition there. 60s build, getting a little older. Big corner lot. We'll come back and wrap up that story when we come back.
Got questions? Call Lifestyles Unlimited at 855-497-4335. The Real Estate Investor Radio Show continues next.
So when I say be ready, number one, to get ready, you better join up Lifestyles Unlimited and learn all these things we're talking about. You're out there piddling and, internet information and your buddy's information or your dad's information. It's not going to get you the results that we're talking about. You're going to have to be educated in what we're doing.
Learn from the people that are already where you want to be. Join us for the free online workshop at lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
Creating the lifestyle you've always wanted. You're hearing Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Andy Webb. If you have any questions for me, you can email me to askandy@luinc.com. Again, askandy@luinc.com. And I'm telling you a little bit about my progression, my wife and my progression as real estate investors, we found Lifestyles Unlimited, must have been, 2011, listening to the radio program for far too long, became members in early 2012, late 2012, because we dragged our feet. We did some other things first. We finally got that first investment property, which was really hard mentally to take it down, to overcome the fear. We looked at a lot. That in hindsight, I wish, why didn't I buy that one? Why didn't I drive past these houses? I see them. I was like, I was in that house. Should have bought it. Hindsight is 20/20 in this respect. But once we got that first one, second one, much easier. And it essentially was the same. It was a little bit older, a little bit smaller, had an addition, but 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage. Both of these, by the way, were huge corner lots. I don't know why. We landed these huge corner lots. But it was the same story. It was foundation repair. And mostly cosmetic, although in this case, given the age of the property, it did have cast iron pipes. We did have some sewer repiping that we had to do, but this was all in the budget. Cash flow was great. Back then, about $400 on each of these, $450, and great out of pocket. Now moving on, we pick up another one. Third one, Lifestyles Realtor. This one was different, not a wholesale deal. This was an MLS. This was an on-market opportunity. In this case, you'll remember back then, a decade ago, there were a lot of bank-owned foreclosure properties. This was one of them. We don't see a lot of those right now. Could that come if there's a recession? Possibly. You're going to want to be ready if it does. Got a smoking deal. Great deal on this one. And what did that one look like? You guessed it. We got a pattern forming here, don't we? Ranch. 1-story, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage, about 1,700 square feet, just like the prior two. And as you do this over and over again, you start to walk these properties the first time you see them on your own, and you're like, well, this is kind of like the other one I did. Rehab budget was X amount. This is going to be X minus 1 or X plus 1 or roughly X. And it's the same story again. Just wash, rinse, and repeat. This is what I talked about last week on the show. It becomes very easy. It becomes a process. And at this point, we really understood how easy this is. And at this point, we saw that our cash flow snowball was growing because, again, at the time, we were dinks, double income, no kids, both working. Living off my income, taking her income, setting it aside to invest. And now we've got this snowball. We've got 3 houses kicking off cash flow. What was the rehab on this one, by the way? Same thing. Foundation repair, minor sewer repipe, cosmetics. Wait a minute. I remember this one because I walked this house and the entire HVAC, the entire air conditioner system was gone. Somebody had taken it. That was a very easy rehab decision, wasn't it? Well, I got to put it in. So we put it in. New HVAC have had no problems since then because best product, best price. We go and we fix everything that needs repair. Now, we talk sometimes on the show, if we're talking rehab, we'll talk about cosmetics. Typically, we're doing some level of cosmetic repair or updating. And then there's the big 5. And notice that we as a couple, as we invest more and more, we're progressively taking on bigger renovations in terms of the scope of work. We're essentially opening ourselves up to a broader portfolio of investment opportunities. And when we talk about the big 5, well, you've already heard 3. Repairing the foundation, doing some level of plumbing, maybe it's pier and beam, HVAC, that's that air conditioner. What are the other 2? That's the electrical. Maybe you're just swapping out a panel. Maybe you have to rewire the whole thing. And then the roof. Those are the big 5. So typically you want to learn when you start to approach this, how do I estimate a renovation? And there'll be some estimate for cosmetic. And then you have to figure out, am I throwing 1, 2, or maybe even all 5 of the big 5 on top? Those can make or break a deal. And I just want to give you as well a financing tip now, because as I work through these, I think about the first house. When we bought that just in my wife's name. When we got to the second house, we put that in my name. When we got to the third house, we put that in her name. So we started swapping names. We did this for 2 reasons. You can have up to 10 financed properties in your individual name when it comes to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And that's where you're going to get the cheapest money typically. So if we each do it on our own, again, double income, no kids, we had the debt to income. We were able to show that. You can do up to 20 financed properties. By switching, we spread out those credit pulls and the appearance of new debt, that mortgage debt on our credit reports. That helped us keep our credit scores higher. So by alternating the time between each of those was spread out a little bit more. And beyond that, we were able to use the same bank statements. So a lot of benefits from the financing standpoint there. And at this point as well, 3 houses in, right? We've started to realize that snowball effect. We've got more cash flow coming in. We're able to invest a little bit faster. We also started to see the impacts of what we call cash flow chunking. And this is a way, to get your mind around that monthly expenditure that you have as a household, as a family. Is it $4,000 a month? Is it $6,000? Is it $10,000? Is it $12,000? You can't look at it as a big number. You have to break it down into chunks. Mortgage, utilities, food bill, daycare if you have a kid or kids, whatever else, car payment, right? And we realized at this point, hey, these three houses meet our mortgage, taxes, and insurance from these rental properties. The cash flow coming in matches that. That gives us more power. We were able to start to think of things in a different way. And Dell talks about this. And the radio host, we talk about this, the power of cash flow chunking. If you go to lifestylesunlimited.com and do a search on the website there, you'll find some good articles. It's a really good way to reframe your thinking. But what I want to get to is how we progressed a little bit farther. And I want to share with you some of the other sources, because although we bought our first 8 or 9 houses exclusively by way of the Lifestyles Unlimited Realty team, some of those were wholesale opportunities. Some of those were on the MLS, as I mentioned. As we grew, we found other sources as well. And the thing is this, when we were at properties 8 or 9, I don't know what it was, people around you start to see your success, and they realize, if I'm thinking about my team in particular that I use to support me in this business, they realize you're an asset to them as well. Our hard money lenders, for example, we've worked with several over the years, and well, they're connected with wholesalers. They're connected with the business very well. They see what's going on. They see inventory. Well, those hard money lenders would bring us houses as well. Now, back to house number 9. As I mentioned, that's the one where we got to the point where my wife was able to retire 3 years in from corporate America. What now? Well, she got a little bit bored. She wanted to do something for the business. So she put together a direct mail campaign. Now, this takes a little more work, but this is also a way to source property. She started direct mailing postcards. Right? We built a website. It's still out there, a website to support this business. And we picked up a great house in the mid-cities off of one of those postcards. Now, worked out just fine. What did it look like? Same as before. Ranch style house, 3 single story, 3 bed, 2 bath, 2 car garage. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? This one too had a nicely done addition. About, I think all told, it's about 1,750 square feet or so. Puts it a little bit bigger than others in the neighborhood, makes it very rentable. The addition was very well done, but a 1950s build. I mean, it's the same darn house as the rest of them we've been doing. Admittedly, and as I mentioned, our progression kept to grow. We got a bit heavier on the rehab with this one, opened up a wall, put in the support beam, reconfigured the kitchen. It was functionally obsolescent, as an appraiser might say. So we improved that, closed the door. No foundation repair on this one. Amazing. No 50s build. No sewer line issues. Amazing. The soil's a little bit different in this part of town. Great roof. Only heavy lift we had, aside from cosmetic, new HVAC, and new electrical panel. Been a great house. And over the years, right, like I said, people see what you're doing, and it's not just the people that are immediately interacting with you on the business side. Sometimes it's your network. My good buddy Steve, his barber, had a neighbor who needed to sell. Well, his barber knew what Steve does. Steve's not interested at this time, so hey, winds up in our lap. Great investment. My mother-in-law, coworker, had a family member die, didn't want to keep the house, referred it to us. Let your network know what you're doing, whether that's somebody that's specifically in that industry or somebody that's not. You will get leads, believe me. You absolutely will. Good buddy of mine, Dan, he tells a story, I've heard it a couple of times now, about his dentist. He's at his dentist, and Dan, he's a talker, and he's talking about what he does and buying houses, fixing them up. Turns out the dentist has another patient that needed to unload a wreck of a property. Guess who got that house? Not I, Dan. So the more you talk, the more you let people know, you'll be surprised at how these kind of passive sources land in your lap. Sometimes wholesalers directly, yes, it can be a lot of work. You need to know who you're working with, but we picked up a wonderful little 1,200 square foot house, 3 bed, 1.5 bath, right? A little bit different, south of Dallas. And possibly I think our biggest rehab that we did to date, this is a 50s build, brought to us. This was by a non-lifestyles realtor that we were using as a leasing agent. So let any other agents, find other agents out there as well. Property managers, if you use a property manager, sometimes they have investors that are no longer interested in staying in the rental business and they'll have property to sell. Talk with them. But our leasing agent brought us this off market. Here too, she just learned about it coincidentally. She was at the doctor and the nurse was telling her about this house. Bitter divorce, as it turns out. House in shambles, broken windows, glass all over the place, halfway hoarders, destroyed doors, kicked in. I mean, there was clearly some anger in this house. And went through the divorce attorney. Very slow process, I'll tell you. But we got it. What it looked like, you can guess. It was a ranch. 1 story, 3 bed, 2 bath, 2 car garage. Now, do you have to do a 322? Absolutely not. We've done other things. We've done 3-1s. No garages, a lot of variety out there, depends on the neighborhood, but we typically land in this space. It was about 1,400 square feet, 50s build, pier and beam. This one needed almost everything except the roof. Everything cosmetic, 50s build, bring it up to date. Foundation, yeah, needed it. Sewer lines, yeah. Replace the galvanized water lines, yeah, got to replace those, 50s build, those things are getting clogged. Electrical panel, updates, new HVAC, relocated the water heater to the garage, new one, everything except the roof. I think all told at the time, this was 2018, rehab was about, I don't know, 65, 70K. But get this, sounds scary, sounds like a lot of work. We had a very large spread between purchase and the after repair value when it's fixed up. So our total out of pocket was about $14,000. That's it, to buy this house that's kicking off cash flow every year, every month. $14K out of pocket, but through the process, we had about $32,000 in extra equity on top that we created. We call that equity capture. That is over a 200% return. 14 in plus 32, we're sitting on $46K of equity at the time and great cash flow. This is the kind of investment that I am looking for personally right now, and this is exactly the kind of investment that I'm seeing a lot of right now from the Lifestyles Unlimited Realty team. Sizable rehab, but low out of pocket. The spread is there. Our cash flows are admittedly a little bit thinner right now due to the higher interest rates. We're still somewhere north of 200, 300 maybe. Depends on you and what kind of financing you can get, your credit, etc. But with these sizable rehabs, we're seeing a very low out of pocket and very big equity gains, equity capture. I want to get into these properties, hold them for a handful of years, get that equity back out. 1031 exchange, roll that into another couple of houses, get that equity out. 1030, keep going. This is how you can increase your portfolio. We talked a little bit about sources just a moment ago, but you have to have the process in place as well. Find those fixer-uppers, create that equity, wash, rinse, and repeat. And right now, because we're traveling so much, I'm really focused on the Lifestyles Unlimited Realty team. Investment out of pocket, $2K outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area came in. 40-some-odd K in equity capture. Do I want to do that deal? Yes, I do. Did I miss that opportunity because I was on a beach somewhere? Yes, I did. But know that they're out there. They're out there. So going back to what I said, sources, lots of opportunity. Become a Lifestyles Unlimited member. Work with the realty team. They're on the same map as we are. They know where we're trying to get. They understand our road to retirement. They understand the type of properties we're looking for. Not every realtor out there will, but you may find some others out there that are looking to have MLS and off-market or maybe pocket deals available. Wholesalers, good source to go to. Just be very careful, good and bad out there. Property managers, as I mentioned, plenty of direct activities. You can do direct mail. We did that for a little bit. I'll tell you, it's very, very competitive right now. My wife did. We've hung that up. You probably get the calls, the texts like I do, the virtual assistants from overseas, cold calling. That's a way to go, I suppose. Door knocking, a lot of work. But bigger picture for me, I'd just like to have the realtors handle that for me. So I can do what I'm doing right now, coming to you from Koreshan State Park on the Gulf Coast of Florida, enjoying my time with my family, having experiences with my son, while someone else finds these properties for me. So if you want to learn more, go to lifestylesunlimited.com. I want you to click on the free workshop. Again, that's where we started a decade plus ago. Make sure that it's a good mesh for you, that it resonates with you, and then start down that path. House number 1 becomes house number 10, becomes 20. Who knows when it'll stop, but you got to get started first. Thank you for listening today. You have a great day.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.